Hey folks, I'm processing some apples tonight. I'm starting them down the long road to hard apple cider or Applejack, whatever you want to call it. So I just wanted to give you a little explanation of how I do this. I've got a inexpensive Italian fruit press here. I'm really happy with it. It did not cost all that much. It was quite reasonable, and I don't need something huge. I'm just making small batches at a time. Now, one thing I will tell you, you'll see a little wobble in this, and that's because the first time I used it with some peaches, and I just got a little gung-ho about it and filled it full of peaches and kept cranking it down. Well, it's still fine, it still works, it's just got a little wobble now because I pressed so hard I bent the base. What I've got, and I wasn't going to do it tonight, but I've got to get these apples done or they're going to go bad. I've got a big batch of nice apples, and I'm just going to start pressing those. So here's the drip pot or the base or whatever you want to call it, and this is the basket that the fruit goes in. I didn't peel the apples, I just cored them and basically quartered them. So I'm going to take and probably about 6 quarters at a time. I don't want to get in that same situation as last time where I'm squishing the base of it. And basically you just bring the handle down, line it up so it connects with the basket, and keep twirling it. Now, as you can see, I've got this near the edge of the table, and I found the most expeditious way of getting this done is to just put a big pot on one of my dining room chairs here and let the juice go into that. Okay, I've got it down to the apples, and now I'm going to start squishing them. And you'll actually hear them with the apples. I know I did with the peaches, is as pressure's put on them, you're hearing them bust. And there we go. And hopefully I've got enough in there to get some juice out. Oh yeah. Okay, now I'm going to unscrew it and add some more apples. I will leave the ones that are in there until the basket is about half full, so I can squeeze every little bit out of it. When the basket's about half full, it gets hard to work with, and then I need to clean it out. Okay, flat apples. Alright, I'm bumping it up to 10. I finished pressing these last night, and if you'll remember, I had the apples just quartered. I was not satisfied with the amount of juice that I got out of it, so I put the whole mess in this pot, covered the pot, and left it on the dining table overnight. Now, I went back and put the whole mess through the food processor and sort of created this mash. That worked out a whole lot better. I was able to really press a good amount of juice out of it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get double duty out of these apples. So that's basically a cider right there that I'm going to add a bit of sugar water to and some yeast and start it like that. Now this mess here, what's left over, I'm going to boil it down some, and then I'm going to add a good bit of honey to it and make it sort of an apple mead. So we'll see how it goes. So I've taken that mash from the apples and I've boiled it down with some water and added about a third of a jar of organic honey to it. So again, this is just an experiment. We'll give it a try and see what it comes up with. I'll let it cool down to room temperature now. Okay, this is my initial batch that is more cider. I've let that get back down to room temperature. I had mixed about a half a cup of sugar with some water, dissolved the sugar by heating it, let that cool down, and then added that to round it up. I've filled this about up to the shoulder of the jug. Now, I've taken 1 tablespoon of this Red Star DADY Distiller's Active Dry Yeast, and I've mixed that into just some warm tap water and let it sit for a few minutes. Now, what I'm going to do is add that in, and we'll see if that yeast can't get to going. Get to work, guys. So you will see a lot of movement in there as this yeast starts to wake up, more or less. Now what I'm going to do is just put the cap on, thread it once or twice, and then just let it sit for a while and we'll come back and check it. Okay, here's the second batch, which was essentially my mash of apples, which I boiled down with some water and some organic honey. Now, I'm straining that off, and what I've got left over is a primitive type of applesauce. Quite convenient that I'm having some pork ribs tonight, so we'll at least get some use out of that. So getting 3 different uses out of this same batch of apples. Good deal. This is about 24 hours into the first batch, which is sitting with the lid loose. Put a flashlight on it. Maybe you can see the movement. If I put the flashlight behind it. It's pretty cloudy. Now I've got a lot of sediment in there, but what I'm trying to get you to see is the movement in there. It's fizzing and bubbling. The yeast is working away. Hopefully you'll be able to see that movement. And that is fermentation underway. Fermentation happening. So that's going pretty well. I'll probably leave this for a couple of days just as is with the lid loose, and just let it go before I take it to the next step. Okay, I've bottled up my second batch, and if you remember, this is the batch that I had boiled down the mash and added water and honey to. So it's going to be more of a apple flavored mead, where the first one is more of a cider or Applejack. I just mark it with a Sharpie and the date. Hopefully my yeast will pick up and get going. We'll see tomorrow. It's been 3 days since I put in the first cider and 2 days on the mead cider. Put a flashlight on here. I don't know if you can see it. The movement slowed down quite a bit on the first one. On the second one, the yeast is still very active. Now what this is, and I doubt you can see it that well, But what it is it's not bubbling like a glass of soda or something, but it's movement of the sediment in the jug. So this is from the process of the yeast turning the sugars into alcohol, and there's quite a bit of movement there. Now I'm looking at the sediment in both of these. This particular jug was the cider, and what I did with this is I pressed the apples and I added a half a cup of sugar. There's a ton of sediment in the bottom. Now that will come out, I will strain that out. But as a comparison, this is the jug that I essentially made apple flavored mead, because I boiled down the remains, the mash from the first jug, added honey to it. Very little sediment on that one. Okay. All of this, by the way, is new to me. I'm learning as I go, so if you have any input, I would be thankful to get it. Here are the two types of airlocks that I have. I have a couple of this, 2 of this, and 3 of this. I actually like this one better. What this is it allows it to bubble up and creates an airlock, keeping out outside air. This one works a little bit different. It's got a sort of a basket inside. I'm going to be using this one today. Alright, I'm going to tighten up the lid on my first jug, and then I'm going to rack it, which I'm going to just turn it over and let all that sediment move. I'm not going to shake it or anything like that. But what I'm doing is allowing any yeast that's trapped in the sediment or any sugars that are trapped in the sediment to get stirred up once again to get as much activity as I can, and therefore fully consume the sugar that's in it, or the majority of the sugar that's in it, and creating more alcohol. Alright, so I'll just leave it for a sec and let all that sediment fall down to the bottom, or a good bit of it, and then I'm going to upright it again and stand it back up and take off the cap and insert my airlock. Now hopefully this will continue to bubble. I'll watch it, because within an hour, if it bubbles up and creates its own airlock with the cider, that's fine. If not, I'll add a little water into the top just to create an airlock on my own. Now that is going to sit basically for about 90 days like this. I'm going to put it in my laundry room, which is just dark and it won't get disturbed, and that's where it'll stay for about 90 days or so until I get ready to bottle it. And I'll close out this video by showing you a glass of mead from Shea Contingency Prepper Vineyard, April 2014 vintage. So I'll wait, let me taste it. Excellent bouquet. Robust and tart, sweet tart flavor, and strong enough to knock a mule on its butt. Anyway, alright, if you have any way I can improve on my primitive winemaking, please let me know. Comments, I always appreciate them. Thanks, stay safe.